of war. In occupied Europe, the Germans rounded up millions of Jews along with enemies of Nazism. Then, turning to what they called the final solution of the Jewish problem, the Nazis began a process of extermination, of genocide. In the death camps, a total of 6 million Jews were systematically gassed and burnt. When the facts of the Holocaust emerged, the world shuddered at the tragedy of the Jewish people. For many, the moral case for a Jewish state was now unanswerable.
I think the greatest problem, both for the Palestinian and for the Israeli and Jew in the world, whether Israeli or not, is somehow to make causal sense of the relationship, on the one hand, between what happened to the Palestinians, dispossession, exile, occupation, the shattering of Palestinian society, to connect that to the Holocaust. And Palestinians say, we played no role whatever in the Holocaust. Why are we asked somehow to uniquely to pay the price of the sacrifice of our land, indeed of our identity and patrimony, as restitution for this? And the Jew is asked also to confront the connection, which is, as the victims of the Holocaust, we are the people who have inflicted upon another people, I won't say another Holocaust, it would be wrong to say that, but we've inflicted upon another people a truly appalling fate. And we here are no longer the victims. We are the people who have taken the role of the oppressor. And that's a very difficult rather, equation for both Palestinians and Jews to deal with.
In the years after the war, the British continued to impose restrictions on the immigration of Jews from Europe. To the Zionists and their powerful sympathizers in America, this policy seemed inhuman, barbaric in the light of what had happened to the Jews, widely discrediting Britain's position in Palestine. Illegal immigrants were rounded up and sent back to Cyprus, some even back to Germany. Now it was the Zionists who took the offensive against British policy. Zionist underground groups launched a campaign of violence to oust the British from Palestine. In July 1946, 91 people were killed when the King David Hotel was blown up.
There were frequent attacks upon the British in Palestine, against the army, against civilians, against, when King David was blown up, all the employers and were blown up in that hotel. We were shocked, of course, something new for us, this kind of warfare. We felt it was treacherous. And we couldn't explain it because we knew that the British had helped the Jews in all ways. They gave them much of the land in Palestine. They handed it over to the new settlers. They helped them in many ways, and we knew that. So we couldn't explain how the Jews were now attacking the British.
Britain leads in an 11th-hour drive to settle a dangerous problem. Mr. Attlee and Foreign Minister Bevin open the Palestine conference.
Britain was keen to carry America along with it. But a pro-Zionist stance by President Truman put Britain's relationship with America, so crucial to post-war reconstruction, under great strain. For Bevin, Palestine became an obsession.
You must remember that Bevin had been a trade unionist all his life. And he regarded, when he first came into office anyhow, he thought of international disputes as having the same character as industrial disputes. In other words, they must be solved by some sort of compromise. There was no other way. Now, that's a false narrative, of course.
All decent people must have been horrified by the murder by Jewish terrorists of the 2 British sergeants, Mervyn Pace and Clifford Martin. Their funeral took place at the Ramley Cemetery with full military honours. The 2 sergeants kidnapped as hostages, were hanged as a reprisal, the sort of cruelty once commonly indulged in by the Nazis. Until the appalling situation in Palestine is cleared up, unspeakable outrages may well continue.
It was at that stage that the government decided to put the question before the United Nations. In the first place, we made a request to the United Nations for advice on what to do next. But in the course of the proceedings in the United Nations, the government came to the conclusion that whatever conclusions the United Nations came to, we would, in any circumstances, withdraw.
I have been instructed by His Majesty's government to announce with all solemnity that they have consequently decided that in the absence of a settlement, they must plan for an early withdrawal of British forces and of the British administration from Palestine.
And after that, the British position was that we would not allow ourselves to be used for the implementation of any policy that was not acceptable to both the Arabs and the Jews, which meant virtually that we were not prepared to continue to take any responsibility in Palestine after the United Nations had reached whatever decision it was going to reach.